Hello, everyone. Juxtaposition here. I tried to put a little mood music into the mix, but I think Zoom has sound suppression. Today's video is entitled Know Your Customer, also known by a military acronym KYC. KYC. All right. This was born out of the Patriot Act. You may have remembered the 9/11 hoax, where we pretended that some terrorists directed by a man living in a cave in Afghanistan blew up 12 office buildings in the World Trade Center, most notably the Twin Towers and building number 7, which was I believe that was a 47-story building. And they also put a hole in the accounting department at the Pentagon and drilled a hole in Pennsylvania with no remains of any bodies, no golf clubs, no golf bags, nothing found strewn on the lawn at the Pentagon, nothing found in the big hole in Pennsylvania. And miraculously, they discovered a passport belonging to a Saudi Arabian national who was labeled a terrorist hijacker. And they used box cutters, which, by the way, the metal detectors installed by the TSA at all your airports wouldn't detect a carbon fiber box cutter. So in other words, nothing's changed. If you want to hijack a plane, go right ahead. Just can't use a bottle of shampoo. They will take your shampoo and sunscreen away from you, as they did to me, juxtaposition. The last time I went to Hawaii, I had a bottle of sunscreen purloined by a burly man with a stun gun. Anyway, we're talking about bank rules for thee, but not for me. In other words, banks don't comply with their own rules. And you know that the United States Congress, United States, which has a bank and finance oversight committee, the senators and House of Representatives of the United States have zero authority over financial institutions of anything to do with money, finance. They have no authority whatsoever. I hope you know that, right? They're toothless German shepherds. Now, they also have no authority whatsoever over steroid in baseball, steroids in tennis, steroids in football, but it doesn't prevent the Congress to have subcommittee hearings televised to look into that entertainers would use drugs. Entertainers use drugs. Listen carefully to juxtaposition. All entertainers use drugs. That means people you might see on Broadway in Manhattan, New York, on a stage. That means film stars. That means porn stars. That means television stars, right? And it also means 100% of high school athletes that intend to go to a Division I school on an athletic scholarship. All the kids in high school are on drugs who are wanting to have a career in sports. They're on drugs by the 9th grade. Most of them are on some variety of drugs prior to the 9th grade. In other words, in intermediate school, or God knows before that. Okay. And what I'm talking about is a combination of narcotics, which would include amphetamines, up to peptide hormone products, which are not narcotics. Products like testosterone, cortisone, growth hormone, insulin, glucose. None of those are narcotics, but they're all performance enhancing substances. Then later you move on to cow blood, Norwegian calf blood. If you have any questions, do call Lance Farmstrong, whose real name is Gunderson. Lance Gunderson knows the whole lexicon of terms for doping. He really does. He just doesn't talk about it on his podcast, because someday Lance Farmstrong is going to be the president of the United States. You know, after Gavin Newsom is done, we'll have Lance Farmstrong. But I think Lance Farmstrong may become the senator from the Lone Star State of Texas first. All right. So KYC, know your customer, is a bunch of poppycock, balderdash, and mendacity, because Just turn everything around and ask yourself, what do you know about your bank? What do you know about Jamie Dimon and Chase? I'm willing to bet that you know nothing. You don't know if Jamie Dimon of Chase is a personal friend of Jeffrey Epstein. Do you know that? Do you know if the president of the World Bank in Washington, D.C., and do you think that he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein or a Jeffrey Epstein replacement clone? Do you know who Jeffrey Epstein's bankers were? Because you know he had to have more than one bank. You know that the Epstein enterprise, which is a military intelligence enterprise, would have used dozens of banks. Virtually 100% of Jeffrey Epstein's crew's activity are felony crimes, meaning that only money laundering secrecy could allow a fleet of jets, not just the Lolita Express, but a Gulfstream, a Learjet, and other types of transportation and human trafficking airplanes would be required. Not to mention helicopters, and boats and yachts, because you know they must have partied on some luxury yachts, don't you think? Those are hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment, all of which requires active maintenance and have to have the bottom scrubbed for barnacles. All the airplanes have scheduled maintenance. There's fuel bills, there's parts and replacement, there's the salaries and wages paid to the support staff on the ground. Then there's the pilots who fly the planes, the co-pilots and the pilots, stewardesses. Someone has to clean the bathrooms. I understand that a lot of those planes have, little private cabins for possible felony rapes that could go on. I'm not sure if that happened or not, but I'll bet Noam Chomsky knows. I bet Alan Dershowitz knows. I bet Woody Allen knows. I bet Kevin Spacey knows. I bet Donald Trump knows. You think? I'll bet RFKJ knows. He flew on the Lolita Express, I believe. RFKJ? Anyway, pretty much everybody flew with Jeffrey Epstein in some form of transportation. All right, maybe a magic carpet with Houdini was one of the planes. The music that I wanted to set the mood for today's video is called The International. It was released in February 2009. It remains my favorite banking Hollywood film. It's an action thriller. It was done in the genre like a 007 James Bond. It was very fast paced, starred Clive Owen and Naomi Watts, who's a British actress. And they had roles in the New York District Attorney's Office in the case of Naomi Watts, and in Interpol, another toothless German Shepherd law enforcement facility. Interpol played with Clive Owen's character. Anyway, it looked into murder of bankers who were engaged in money laundering, which is a form of organized crime, organized at the highest level. They feature a specific bank called the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI. I'm going to use the real banks with real names. I'm talking about the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. I'm talking about UBS, Union Bank of Switzerland, located in Zurich, Switzerland, with offices worldwide. I'm talking about the World Bank, located in Geneva, Switzerland, and also Washington, D.C., the swamp. I'm talking about the International Monetary Fund, located in Geneva, Switzerland, and internationally. And I'm talking about every single major international bank. And I'm talking about every correspondent bank who does domestic banking only. I'm talking about all banks, 100% of all banks, because these rules that I'm talking about that fall within the Patriot Act, and then a subcategory of the Patriot Act is known as, I have to read it because I'll start laughing if I just wing it. So it stems from what is called the Bank Secrecy Act, which they actually passed October 26, 1970. We had the Bank Secrecy Act. Now that's comical to me because remember, I audited Bank of America in 1980, 81, and 82. And they have a branch on the 9th floor of Pine Street, San Francisco, which is entitled Grand Cayman Accounting, where 100% of all the activities in there are secret, right? They're secret, and they have a 7-digit cipher code on the door, which would indicate maybe felony crimes are going on in there. And they don't even let the auditors in that room. Okay. But of course, I did go in that room for over 35 minutes by myself alone. And that's how long it took for them to extract me from the room. 35 minutes. All right. Bank Secrecy Act was enacted in 1970. The Patriot Act came after the hoax event known as the 9/11 debacle, where we had a hoax, except that the buildings were demolition by the Department of Energy and DARPA and the Department of Defense and probably Raytheon Missile Guidance, Lockheed, and Bell Nokia Labs, and the munitions companies involved with demoing and melting and vaporizing direct energy attacks on buildings. The USA Patriot Act was signed into law October 26th, 2001. Right? That was only 1 month and 15 days after the demolition of the World Trade Center and Pentagon Accounting Department. The September 11th attacks. Remember where you were? I know where I was. Anyway, I want to tell you that 99% of all the money laundering felony crimes that occur in this world are conducted by and supervised by banks. And what's comical to me is that KYC, know your customer, does not apply to banks. It applies to bank customers. So, in other words, the criminals do not have to comply with KYC. Now, within that, you should know there's going to be a tsunami of new regulations being foisted upon you by a number of regulators who have no authority to do it. FDIC, for example, and the Federal Reserve Bank, which is headquartered in, again, the swamp in Washington, D.C. You know, there are 12 banking districts in the United States. I'm coming to you from District 12 of the Hunger Games. That's the Western region. That goes Seattle, Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, San Francisco. That's the Western region is District 12. I believe Washington, D.C. is in District 5, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong about that, but it doesn't matter. The 13th bank of the Federal Reserve Bank is the headquarters bank in Washington, D.C. That's number 13, lucky 13 Unity amongst Masons. So when we refer to the Federal Reserve Bank, there are 12 districts plus the headquarters in Washington. Now, there are some other branch banking. For example, the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank is headquartered in San Francisco, but has a branch in downtown Los Angeles near the Bonaventure Hotel. And it's called the San Francisco Federal Reserve Bank, but it's in Los Angeles County in the city of Los Angeles. All right. Anyway, what you should know is things that go with rules, silly rules, very silly, foolish, ridiculous, bombastic directives is things like real ID, masking when you go into a bank, wearing a face diaper, having a digital passport, having a vaccination passport, digital ID, eyeball recognition, biometrics, palm print, fingerprints, all the things required to be booked into the county jail are being rolled out, at your bank. That's coming. All right. You're not going to be able to enter your bank unless you have biometrics, eyeball recognition, and mandatory vaccines. They can tell if you're vaccinated or not because of every person walking around in our society gives off a carbon footprint, heat, image, and ultrasonic sound wave, and is picked up by our surveillance system of, drones over your head, satellites above, ring cameras, smart meters, the LED streetlights. All of these devices can detect a signal from your body area network. Even if you're not wearing a Fitbit or carrying your cell phone, your body area network will be picked up. If you're wondering how that's possible, just go to a Starbucks coffee house and see about hooking up to their internet access. And with your cell phone, it'll give you the options of Wi-Fi routers in that particular zone. Well, that applies to your human body. Your body has a series of routers that it's connected to, and your body is connected up to probably 4 dozen different wireless routers. Okay. Everywhere you go, even if you go out to the Death Valley, Mojave Desert or Death Valley, you'll find that you're probably hooked up to a half a dozen to a dozen routers in the middle of nowhere. Because believe it or not, there's routers in the desert, and there's drones, and there's satellites over your head. Not to mention all the pollution, right? Just look up to the sky and look how polluted it is with the silver aluminum. That will also detect a signal from your wireless body area network and tether you to the cloud 24/7. So there's no escape unless you go a couple of miles underground. So anyway, this know your customer business is especially annoying to me because it doesn't even apply to your banker. And as far as I'm concerned, I want to know everything there is to know about my banker first before we talk about me. We know that all the major banks of the world work with Jeffrey Epstein, who's involved in the felony rape and satanic ritual abuse of children. That's people under age 18. We know that Jeffrey Epstein was involved in the molestation and trafficking of under 18-year-old little girls and probably boys all over the world in jets that cost tens of millions of dollars to maintain and fuel. That's a felony crime. And that crime cannot happen without a bank. Okay, the mafia, the 5 crime families of New York cannot exist without dozens of financial institution relationships. The Chicago outfit cannot exist without a very cozy banking relationship. The Los Angeles crime families cannot exist without banking. So just think of bankers as being Jeffrey Epstein's brother. Okay, they're buds, they're pals. Just like Donald Trump is, hey, so too are a dozen to 2 dozen elite bankers, right? Who probably get free massages as part of their appreciation at Christmas time, don't you think? Anyway, there was also an act in 2015 called the U.S. Freedom Act, which is a joke because it modified some of the provisions within the Patriot Act. Okay. And just here, there's no such thing as patriotism in real life. There's only patriotism in the metaverse and the matrix of mendacity. It's a made up concept like communism is, like socialism is. Those are made up things so that we don't talk about fascism and techno enslavement. That exists. Techno enslavement, totalitarianism, warrantless searches, lack of due process, might makes right, infiltration, not invasion, subversion, not free elections. They don't exist. No such thing as a free election. And intimidation and bullying instead of free choice. That's the world in which you live. If you want to delude yourself and think you live in a liberty and freedom Hunger Game, you're free to do so. But as Timothy Leary said, tune in, turn on, and drop out. And do drop acid. And juxtaposition says, and lots of vodka. Vodka and LSD go directly with USA freedom. It also goes to patriotism and standing for the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem, which are showing your allegiance to Switzerland. The United States flag is 13 stripes, which indicates unity amongst Masons. And Jeffrey Epstein's satanic ritual abuse temple on Little St. James Island is 13 stripes. They're blue and white instead of red and white. They're blue and white. See, it's just a theme on the same Swiss flag, is it not? Anyway, I'm telling you that all the big banks of the world, which all report to the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, home to Johann Sutter, who discovered gold in California on New Helvetia property belonging to Switzerland. America didn't even discover gold. That's how lame America is. America is a toothless German shepherd. It is a psychops to psych you out. Know your customer. This is the most absurd thing in the world. I'll read you a little bit from the text of the Know Your Customer. If I can just somehow expand the screen. Okay, I'm doing that now. Okay, introduction. One of the most important, if not most important, means by which financial institutions, as I plug my nose, financial institutions can hope to avoid criminal exposure by their customers who may use the bank resources for illicit purposes is to have a clear and concise understanding of the customer and the customer's habits or practices. The adoption of, quote, know your customer, end quote, guidelines and procedures by financial institutions is proven extremely effective in detecting suspicious activities by customers using an institution, and can do so in a timely manner. In other words, erasing any privacy or due process. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is your bank spies on you. They know every single penny you spend to a third party who is also within the banking system. So both parties are being spied on. Don't feel bad if you believe in cryptocurrency. You're signing up for the same program. Cryptocurrency is a hyperledger system where both the payee and the payor are GPS tracked and traced and have social credit scores in a private dossier file. That's right. There's no privacy whatsoever using cryptocurrency, other than to the other peasants and slaves on the reservation. They may not be privy to your crypto transactions, but I can assure you that the Zug Switzerland and the Bank for International Settlements is kept real-time updated on all financial matters. This is going to be expanded beyond digital money, people. CBDC, central bank digital currency, and cryptocurrency. This is going to go far beyond that. They're going to put it into your bone marrow, and they're going to make all of the tangible personal property in your garage and in your home, all your furniture, all your bathroom supplies, your toothpaste, it's all going to be tokenized. Every single thing in the world is going to be assigned a QR code, quick response code. They're going to put nano in everything, including the paint on your walls. So they're going to be able to trace, track, and target the walls of your home, your toothpaste, the china, the fine china in your cabinets. They're going to be able to look at your bicycles, your motorcycles, and your cars. And if you attempt to barter and exchange, trade without using a bank, you're going to get busted, because everything has to be tokenized in the new world that we're going to be in by 2030. We'll be in this new world of tokenized society. Anyway, I can go on and read this. I'll provide you the link. For me, it makes me feel nauseous, the objectives of Know Your Customer. It's very hypocritical. It's very dishonest. It's very one way. It's a directive. It's a mandate. It's an order. It's not a voluntary program. And they're going to sell all of these things. It's for your own good and your own security. But it's not. It's to spy on Americans. It's to spy on anybody who uses a bank, whether you're Iranian, Iraqi, Chinese, you're a person of the world. People of the world. There are no nations. There's just people and banks. That's it. The people are slaves and the banks are the leaders. This is all part of real ID verification, eyeball, palm print, fingerprint recognition, known as biometrics, real ID, driver's licenses, or photo IDs, having to do with know who you are, to get into a liquor store, to get onto a bus, to get on a train, to rent a car, to book a room at a hotel. You know, we're going to have travel restrictions. All this stuff is programmable. Know Your Customer is about knowing the habits of your customer and programming their tokens or their crypto to be able to work in certain zip codes and to be disabled in other zip codes. Don't you see? Your crypto is not going to work if you have some kind of low status in the new world order. Know Your Customer is a lie. It's a bald-faced lie. They don't want to know you. They just want to trace, track, target, and control you using programmable money. That's what Know Your Customer is all about. They're already doing trillions of dollars of felony crime money laundering, and they have no intention of stopping. Do you think that the Know Your Customer provision had anything to do with slowing down Jeffrey Epstein, or anything to do with Donald Trump's picadillos, or anything whatsoever to do with Arnold Screw Your Freedom Schwarzenegger, or Mel Gibson, or Gene Simmons of KISS, or COVID? We were full speed ahead. COVID is the greatest fraud and felony crime in the history of human civilization. COVID was a total bald-faced lie designed for stupid people who believe in lies, okay, and believe in little dwarfs like, Anthony Fauci. If you believe in Anthony Fauci, you should just check yourself into a mental institution and ask for a quick euthanization, because there's no hope for you. There's no coming back. What I want to tell you is these rules, such as the Patriot Act and the Bank Secrecy Act, which all have dates and are voted on by institutions with no actual authority, they're all provisional, meaning they're temporary. They're all going to be changed. They're all going to be tightened up. The whole word provisional just means arranged or existing for the present time, probably to be changed at a later date. And I can just tell you, not probably, will be changed at a later date. You do know that the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights, those are provisional documents. They've been ignored for the last 250 years. There's never been a time in American history where our Constitution was ever observed. We don't have any constitutional courts. We don't have a judiciary that's dedicated to the Constitution. All our courts, our superior courts, our appellate courts, our circuit courts, and our Supreme Court of the United States are under maritime law, and they are procedural military tribunal protocol. They do not follow anything to do with the First Amendment, the Sixth Amendment. They don't know the Constitution. They don't follow it. They don't care. There's no due process. Everything's decided in secret. The lawyers and the judges engage in unethical behavior known as ex parte communications in the parking lot, in the men's room, in the judge's chambers. They meet without the relevant parties present. That's technically improper. They do it all the time. They do it all the time under this concept of power of attorney, but yet they engage in judicial notice, where they admit evidence that is fact props, and they accept perjured testimony using judicial notice as their delivery system to insert perjured testimony into transcripts in order to justify decisions made in the court. You can't get any more criminal than wielding judicial notice like a dagger. I mean, it's a kangaroo court. The My Lai massacre, the Manson family trial, the Menendez, the Eric and Lyle Menendez, they had 6 trials. 6. They had 4 mistrials. All right. Leslie Van Houten, she had 3 trials. What a joke. In other words, they couldn't get a jury to convict them, so they had to keep trying. And it's a disgrace. The McMartin School molestation case, I think they had about 5 or 6 trials on that, no convictions. And then they just threw up their hands and gave up. No convictions. So, you can't take criminal court or civil court seriously. Civil court, only 1% or less cases go to a jury. So, it's not like you see on Perry Mason. They all engage in settlement talks at the law firm conference rooms, where they settle everything outside of court. It's not settled in the courtroom. It's settled in the parking lot or in a country club, golf course, some other place, right? All right. Well, anyway, I'm going to provide you a series of links involving HR 2048, U.S. Freedom Act of 2015. I'm going to show you the Bank Secrecy Act, enacted October 26, 1970. I'm going to show you the U.S. Patriot Act, signed into law. I'm going to show you the Know Your Customer regulations, which is part of Bank Secrecy Act, BSA. And it's also part of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN Patriot Act Amendment amendment. I'm going to show you a conference that's scheduled for May 5th of this year, May 5th through May 7th. It's a 3-day conference, 5th, 6th, and 7th in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Charlotte Convention Center. You can also get tickets to a NASCAR race north of Charlotte. They have a racetrack. I've been over there. Didn't go inside, but I've been outside the racetrack, Charlotte Motor Speedway, north of Charlotte. And they're encouraging everybody to go to NASCAR racing while they learn about the plethora of new banking rules coming down the pike to strip away what little freedom is left at your bank as we go further deeper into the artificial intelligence HAL 9000. All right, so I understand banking is kind of a boring subject, but unfortunately, it's how we live our life. We're going to tokens. We're going to social obedience credit. We're going to be more and more frustrated. Most of your bankers are going to be fired. They're going to get sacked. Even Jamie Dimon, he's going to get fired. Larry Ratfink is going to get fired. Steven Schwartman, Joe LeCobe, all the Sand Hill Road bankers, most of them are going to get fired. We don't need all the bankers that we have when you have a HAL 9000. Once we build out this last phase of the internet and we go to the biodigital convergence biometric system with real ID and mandatory jabs and polluted air, I'd say 90% of the bankers are going to go the way of the dodo bird. Now, if you're a judge listening in to my show, you're going away too, right? I mean, violent crime is down 50% in California and has been for decades. So we already have double the number of judges that are needed. But in the new world, you're going to need 0 judges because the HAL 9000 can assess the crime, prosecute the crime, and issue the punishment, execution, death penalty, disability, can disable the person so they have to go to hospital and then sent to a mental institution. That can all be done remotely using precision medicine, point of care treatment, point of care, e-medicine, e-pharmacy, and you can do e-superior criminal court. You don't need a judge. Judges are completely perfunctory. And, so are medical doctors. They're going the way of the dodo bird tour. We're going to get rid of medical doctors who basically do whatever the pharmaceutical industry and Medicare tell them to do under the standard of care doctrine, which is a total sham, hoax, fraud, criminal fraud. Doctors are going away. I think PhDs should go away. Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, Jeffrey Sachs, Noam Chomsky. There's nowhere in our society for them. We don't need Jennifer Doudna. We don't need Rachel Horowitz. We don't need Jamie Kate. We don't need Christopher Pitzer for Smart Dust and Dust Networks. They can all go the way of the dodo bird. They're not necessary. They're perfunctory. We don't need MIT. We don't need Harvard. Don't need Princeton. Don't need Yale. Don't need Stanford. Don't need University of California. Just hook everybody up to the HAL 9000, which we already are, and just type up a code, algorithm, and you're done. And that's it. Then you get your DoorDash and your Netflix, and it's all good. That's my video for today. Do like and share my videos. I am heavily shadow banned. I do appreciate you emailing the link of my videos to people that you might think would be interested. And do become a paid member, because the only education that's worth anything is the one that you personally pay for. Take care. Bye-bye.